welcome to Bragg's Bible Bites. This is a special Easter edition, I guess you could say. If you're seeing this on YouTube, then you already know that our channel has now gone public. If you're seeing this like in a Facebook share or something like that, then you'll be taken to the channel if you're not already there. Anyway, all of that aside, the Lord speaks to us in a myriad of different ways, yes. Directly through His Word, in songs. He speaks directly to people, yes. Sometimes. So there's visions, there's dreams. Yes. And what He does is He gives us, a lot of times, a deeper insight or a different perspective on something that we may already know. And so, like for instance, when Jesus and His disciples had the Last Supper and they went out and said they sang a hymn and they went out to the Mount of Olives, well, we found out that they sang Psalm 118.
Yeah.
And so Jesus would have been leading the singing. So what must that have sounded like?
When God sang.
Yeah, really. But what's really interesting about what he was singing is one of the verses in that psalm is the one that says, "This is the day that the Lord has made,
yes,
and we will rejoice and be glad in it." So read the whole psalm with that kind of perspective in mind and see if it doesn't kind of change the way you've seen that whole scenario.
And so, at the very end of it, he talks about binding the sacrifice to the altar. And this is Jesus going up the hill.
Yeah.
Because it said they sang a psalm and went out. And he knew what was coming. And so when we meditate on his word, he begins to give us a little bit deeper insight. He's a God of detail, and nothing is by chance. So over this past week, I was under the weather. And so on Good Friday, I decided that I was just going to go home and rest and let my body have time to heal itself. And as I went to lay down in the late afternoon, we live near a church, and the bells just started ringing, which is not unusual because it rings on the half hour and the hour.
Right.
But in this particular case, it rang and rang, and it seemed like for an extended period of time. And I was like, well, that's really odd. And then it dawned on me, it was 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Mm-hmm. And that was the ringing of the bells to commemorate the time that Jesus died. And so as my mind started to go in that direction and to meditate on what he had done on the cross, the Lord deals with me in visions. They're almost like little movies. And I immediately seen Jesus on the cross, a lot like out of the Passion, where he is beaten to beyond recognition.
Yeah.
And he's hanging on the cross. And I hear him say, "It's finished." And then I see in my mind his head slump. But then that's when it kind of took a different turn than anything it's ever done before. Because then I seen his spiritual head raise up, his spirit leave his body. But this time, I had seen it in a way I've never even heard. He went to the temple, and he went to the Holy of Holies that was covered with a big, thick veil that was like a foot thick, and he ripped it in two. And then he went and he laid himself on that altar. And the verse, "I give my life, no man takes it. I lay my life down," came to my mind. And then immediately as I see this image of him laying himself on the altar, Jesus, the high priest, going into the Holy of Holies on Passover, I see him immediately go down, his spirit go down. And in the movie sense, the temple began to shake and rocks began to move. And then I see people coming up out of graves. And I remember in the scripture it said that there was a great earthquake and people came up from the grave. Well, there was something else going on. And I'd never correlated it. He had gone down into Sheol, mm-hmm. the place of the dead. Jesus talks a little bit about it in Luke 16, where he's talking about the poor beggar that had died and being held in the bosom of Abraham. Mm-hmm. Then across him was a great chasm, which was Hades, or the place of torment. And he talks about a real conversation that took place between Abraham and this rich man. And so that's where Jesus went. And we're also told that he preached to those in captive. So you got to remember that people that died in faith before Christ came were held in this place known as the bosom of Abraham. Mm-hmm. And he went and he preached to them. But more than that, when Adam fell, he gave the deed to creation over to Satan. And at this particular time, when Jesus has offered himself on the altar, gone into Hades to preach the gospel to those that were held in the bosom of Abraham, we see the saints coming alive because his life was so full.
Right.
And the thing about it is, he went to Satan. He defeated him. He said he made
Sure
an
did.
open show. And he took that deed to creation, because now he was King of Kings and Lord of Lords. He was the Lamb that was slain from the foundation
Right.
of the earth. Before God spoke everything into existence, they knew the plan. And it was just an amazing moment.
Yeah.
And so that's just a little insight. Maybe you've not seen it that way before. I'd always heard that it was the veil being ripped and the Spirit coming out.
Right.
Is that kind of the take?
I never looked at it that way, that he, would have offered himself
Yeah.
on that altar. And it was really an eye-opener, and it messed my mind up.
It did my too. And I was not on medication.
No.
But that's just, we wanted to share it with you, because in these days, the Lord's waking up his people, and he wants to commune with us. He wants to talk to us. And so that's what these conversations we'll have with Bragg's Bible Bites will be like and be about. And so we just wanted to say, our Lamb has conquered.
Let us follow him.
Let us follow him. Happy Easter.
Happy Easter.